Hello, I'm Dr Jodi Richardson, and you're listening to Well, Hello Anxiety, a podcast where we end the struggle with anxiety and build our toolkit of practical skills to thrive. What's one thing you could do differently that will significantly reduce the impact of your anxiety? If you're not sure where to start, this is the episode for you. Welcome to another episode of Well, Hello Anxiety with me, Dr Jodi Richardson. I deliver presentations in schools and workplaces, helping parents, senior students, teachers, and other professionals understand anxiety, dial it down, and so much more. I'm also the author of Anxious Kids and Anxious Mums, each published in multiple languages. When it comes to managing your anxiety or helping someone you care about to understand and manage theirs, it's perfectly understandable if you're not sure where to start. There's an infinite amount of information available with just a handful of keystrokes, and it can be hard to know which advice to trust. It can also feel overwhelming and tricky to know where to start when you're feeling anxious, because it can be really hard to make even the simplest of decisions when our anxiety is high. Another one of the joys of living with anxiety. In this episode, I'm breaking it down so you know exactly where to begin. You still get to choose. I'm just making it a whole lot easier by applying the traffic light framework. We've both got a job to do here. I'm going to share ideas to help you change your relationship with anxiety, so important. Strategies to help you dial it down, and tips to help you leave avoidance behind and do the things you've always wanted to do. I'm also going to talk about the things that can make anxiety worse. All you have to do is choose one thing to give the green light to and start, one thing to put the brakes on and stop, or one thing to continue because you've experienced the effectiveness of that strategy and you want to keep it as part of your anxiety toolkit. Sound good? So to reiterate, as we move through this episode, I want you to choose one thing to either start, stop, or continue. Just one thing. It really means a lot to me to encourage behaviour change. We are in no way devoid of information. We have every answer at our fingertips if we know where to look for trusted sources. But what I really want for you to do is to be able to change what it is that you are doing so that you can experience the effectiveness of some of the strategies that I will be sharing with you today. The following are strategies you may like to start or continue because of the tangible effect they can have on settling anxiety and changing your relationship with it. So I'm going to start by talking to you about the strategies, ideas, the mindsets that you may very well like to start or continue. And I'm going to give you a whole range of things that you can choose from to perhaps stop a little later in the episode. Okay, here goes. Making movement part of every day, trying different activities, trying to find the activity that you really enjoy, or choose an activity that is easy for you to do regularly, and perhaps invite a friend to join you, which makes it more enjoyable. But even 10 minutes of walking a day can make a difference to your experience of anxiety. It can use up all of the adrenaline, all of the physiological changes that we go through when our fight or flight response is triggered. And so movement could be very well the number one prescription for anxiety that I could share with you. Movement every day is really powerful. And when you approach this episode and trying something new or starting or stopping something, what I want you to think about is approaching it with a sense of curiosity, approaching it from the point of view of, I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to monitor how I feel before and after I've used the strategy or done the exercise or whatever it is that you choose to do, and make a note of what it is that you experience in terms of how you feel and what difference it makes for you, so you can work out what is the best strategy for you or what are the best management strategies that work for you, because what works for me might not be exactly your cup of tea. The next idea that I want to share with you is around monitoring your breathing. This is something that I've been doing a lot lately. I went through a period of time recently where my anxiety was high and I was over breathing, lots of yawning, lots of sighing, couldn't quite get a full breath. You know, that feeling you just can't get the oxygen you need. Whereas in fact, what we're doing is we're blowing off too much carbon dioxide. So perhaps you could simply start by monitoring your breathing, paying attention to how often are you sighing, how often are you yawning, are you feeling out of breath, are you feeling that shortness of breath, are you finding that you're holding your breath? A lot of us are holding our breath, especially when we're at our laptops or at our computers. And then of course, we feel out of breath and we are interrupting that very delicate balance of carbon dioxide and oxygen that's so important for regulating our nervous system. And so perhaps even just monitoring your breath might be something that you would like to do. Another idea is finding what works to help you get out of your head and into your body. Now, right here in front of me, and I won't reach for it because it'll make a sound if I do that, but I have my beautiful hand cream. If you've ever heard me present, I talk about getting out of your head in a variety of ways, and one of those is through your senses. So whether or not you're feeling worried or you're experiencing the physical symptoms of anxiety, which go hand in hand and can feel really uncomfortable, one way to get out of our head and back into our body, becoming more mindful in the moment, is through our senses. And I really love to use the sense of touch, of rubbing in the hand cream, and my sense of smell. I've got a beautiful citrus one here in my office, and I've got a beautiful Indota cream in my bedroom right by my bed. You might like to use something that has lavender in it, because we know that lavender as a scent will help reduce feelings of stress and anxiety. Or perhaps you'd like to use your sense of sight. Choose a colour that you'd like to look for when your anxiety is bubbling up. It could be yellow. When you feel anxious, are you going to look around you and look for everything that you can see around you that's yellow? Or alternatively, you could use the idea of colours as a way to ground yourself by looking around you and noticing and naming all of the colours that you can see. And I did that in a supermarket not so long ago when my anxiety was high. I needed to get the groceries done. So as I walked down the breakfast cereal aisle, I can see red, this is blue, this is green. It helps to really be a circuit breaker for that anxious thinking, get us out of our head and into our body. And another beautiful thing to do is to take some time to sit or lie quietly and tune in with your hearing to listen for all of the sounds that you can hear around you. Perhaps you might like to choose one of these strategies to start to give the green light to when we're approaching anxiety management from this traffic light framework. It's just started raining here. It's absolutely pouring, and I don't know if you can hear it, but I hope you can. It is absolutely beautiful. I'm warm and dry. I've got my pooch Dusty by my side, and the rain is belting down on the roof. It's a really lovely sound. Okay, back to some more strategies. The feeling of anxiety, whilst it might feel this way, isn't actually dangerous. So despite the racing heart, the changes in how you feel in your stomach, the sweating, the shaking perhaps, depending on how you experience anxiety, it can be really helpful to say to ourselves, I'm feeling anxious and that's okay. Naming it to tame it, naming how we're feeling accurately can significantly reduce our distress around that emotion. And remember, anxiety is an emotion. Another idea is to practice meditation. When I was diagnosed with depression and I started seeing a psychologist, and I saw my psychologist after finding him third time lucky, one of the things he taught me was to meditate, and I would do so twice a day for 20 minutes. And it was profound, the difference that meditation made to my mental health and my well-being, to my happiness, and just to my overall levels of stress. Now, it's not for everyone, but remember that mindfulness practices can be integrated into your daily life. You might like to practice mindfulness when you're doing an everyday task, even if it might feel like a chore. We are most happy when our attention is in the moment, far more happy than when we are thinking about things that have happened or looking ahead to things that may happen, even when we look forward to things, good things that are coming up for us. We're far more happy when we are paying attention to what is happening in the moment. Mindfulness might be something that you might like to start, or perhaps it's something you've been doing and you'd like to give that the orange light and continue. Progressive muscle relaxation is another suggestion that I have for you. We can experience so much muscle tension when we're anxious. I feel it in my jaw. I feel it. I know that I am clenching my jaw. I know that I do grind my teeth in the evenings. And sometimes, if I'm particularly anxious, I can feel that tension through my shoulders. For some people, it can lead to headaches or even migraines. Progressive muscle relaxation is simply tensing a muscle group. And you don't need to tense your muscles to the max. You can bring about 50% tension in the muscle group, just feel that tension and then let it go and notice the warmth and the relaxation. You can progress from your toes, progressively tensing different muscle groups and then relaxing them and just really keeping your mind and your attention on what it is that you are doing as you scan from one end of the body to the other, tensing and relaxing muscle groups as you go. Another strategy that you may like to adopt is practicing and applying the physiological sigh, which requires us to inhale through our nose twice, like this. What we're doing is we're inhaling through our nose and then at the end of our inhalation, taking in another small sip of air, just a little bit extra, to really take in that extra bit of oxygen, and then to exhale slowly and lengthen our exhalation. So we're exhaling for longer than we are inhaling. This is a strategy that is particularly effective when you can feel the stress and anxiety rising, and you might like to repeat the physiological sigh 2 or 3 times. Take your time and really tune into how you felt before and after. It's a really powerful, effective, do-anywhere strategy that can bring the parasympathetic part of our nervous system back online, which is what we want. When we're in fight or flight, it's the sympathetic aspect of our nervous system that is in the driver's seat. Another mindset shift that I would invite you to consider adopting, and remember, please, I'm not asking you to do everything I'm talking about. I'm sharing a whole range of strategies, and I'm asking you today to choose one to start, that's the green light, to continue, that's the orange light or the amber light, or to stop. And I'm going to share a list of things that you might like to stop. Sometimes making change is not about doing something extra. It's about letting something go. So a mindset shift that I'd invite you to consider is the idea of finding compassion for yourself when you are experiencing a difficult time, whether that is anxiety or some other aspect of your life that is causing you challenge or grief or upset or distress. Knowing that it is human to experience all emotions. It is not normal to feel happy all the time. And that when we can show ourselves compassion, we remind ourselves that we are not alone, that we are experiencing a moment of suffering, that the suffering is very human, and of course, that when we can show ourselves kindness in these moments, it's a beautiful thing to do. I did record an episode dedicated to self-compassion, and I'll pop the number of that episode in the show notes. One of the changes that I love to suggest that can be so powerful and can make an enormous change, but is not always easily done, is becoming both fiercely protective of your sleep and ensuring that you have everything in place to sleep well. Now, when you're anxious, it's really common to wake in the night with worries, with lots of racing thoughts, and it can be difficult to settle back down to sleep. It can be difficult sometimes to go to sleep at all. And so it's not necessarily straightforward, but I really encourage you, if you think that you could benefit from some professional help, have a conversation with your doctor about what are the changes that you can make to really protect your sleep and to help you get the most restorative night's sleep that's possible. It's a cornerstone of our mental health and our physical health. So where you can, protect your sleep, set some boundaries, set some reminders. And I have 2 episodes actually that I recorded about sleep, and I'll pop the episode numbers in the show notes as well. Journaling is a great strategy, particularly if you are waking up in the middle of the night. Please don't jump on your phone. The light, the social media that you may be looking at will all fuel more thoughts and potentially fuel anxiety and stress. So I'd really encourage you to grab a pen and paper, do some journaling, maybe listen to some music, perhaps read a book for a little while, maybe something that is fiction that's really engrossing, so that you can take your mind off whatever it was you were thinking about and settle back down. Another idea that is really powerful is this idea that we can have anxiety and that's okay. It's not dangerous. Yes, it's a signpost. Yes, it's a signal, but it's usually not a signal of danger. For people like me, and perhaps like you, if you have a more sensitive alarm in your brain, then your brain may detect threat where there really is no danger. And so developing this idea of acceptance, this idea of I can experience this anxiety, I understand it, I know what's happening, and developing a willingness to move forward with it is what will really help you to step forward and do all of the things that you would love to do in your life, whether that's something very small like reaching out to an old friend, or whether or not that's something exciting and big and quite terrifying, like maybe starting a business or changing jobs or doing something that's going to create a huge change for you in your life. Whatever it is, I really encourage you to know that anxiety is a sign for us. And when we can recognize that it is a sign, our brain has detected a threat, it is usually just a sign of change or uncertainty, or perhaps even something that's outside of our control that can trigger our fight or flight response, have us feeling anxious, and have us naturally and instinctively wanting to turn and pop back under the doona or shut the door or cancel plans or put things off or procrastinate. And I don't want that for you. I want you to get to the end of your days and feel like you've done the things you really wanted to do and that anxiety didn't get in the way. Now, that can take time and some of you may need some additional support. So reach out for help if you need it. But adopting this mindset of I can feel anxious and do it anyway is extremely powerful and will change your relationship with your anxiety. You may even like just to turn around to your anxiety and say, well, hello, anxiety. Here you are again. It's you and me. Looks like we're doing life together. I'm going to settle you down. I'm going to dial you back. I'm going to put you in the boot if you must come with me, and I'm going to get along doing what I want to do. Okay, so I have shared so many different ideas for you that you could either start or continue. What I would really love to do now is share a handful of ideas that you might want to put the brakes on. These might be the things that you are going to stop doing. But again, I just want to remind you, I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. You don't have to do all of the things that I am suggesting. Please just choose one. One is a beautiful start. All of the suggestions I'm making are really powerful. And so just start with one, okay? See how you go, and then pick up another when you're ready. Start, stop, or continue. One of the things that is worth stopping is alcohol. We reach for alcohol when we are stressed and anxious, and what we find is that initially, yes, it is a depressant. It does make us feel relaxed. We do release dopamine, but what can happen is we can experience rebound anxiety when the alcohol wears off that is worse than the stress and anxiety that we started with. And you can also experience the day after, if you've had a few wines of a night or a few G&Ts, the following day you can experience anxiety that we love to term hangxiety, that can put you in a really elevated anxious state the day after having consumed alcohol. And so again, with the curiosity of a scientist, you might like to trial not drinking and seeing how you feel, seeing the difference that it makes. That may be one thing that you would like to stop. Social media drives comparison And we can't help it. We are wired to compare ourselves. We really are. But when we compare ourselves, we are, as we know, comparing our lives with a highlights reel of other people's lives. But additionally, we are making comparisons that are really unfair. And so another thing I'd recommend reducing, putting limits or boundaries around, or even stopping, is spending time on social media. Unless you can genuinely walk away from your social media saying to yourself, I feel so much better after spending that little bit of time scrolling Instagram or on Facebook, it's often really detrimental to our stress and our anxiety. We compare ourselves, and that's no good for anybody. Compare and despair is often how it's put. And we can often find ourselves wasting time, procrastinating with the infinite scroll, the state of insufficiency, as Dr. Christy Goodwin put it so beautifully in a recent episode. We can waste time, and we can then feel badly that we haven't spent that time more wisely. Now, I am all for downtime. I'm all for relaxing. Absolutely, it's essential. But scrolling on social media might not be something that actually relaxes you. It may very well elevate your anxiety. So just pay attention. See how you feel before and after having a scroll. Turning off the news is something we did a very long time ago here in our home. Watching the news and seeing the highlights of the worst things that have happened around the state, the country, and around the world can really elevate anxiety. And particularly for those of you who have children who might be watching, very young children may not be able to discern between a news story about the war that is occurring in the Ukraine and not necessarily making the connection that it is a long way away and that here in Australia we are not threatened by that war. And I do know of a young lady who did feel that. She felt that every time a plane went over her primary school, that a plane was coming to drop a bomb on the primary school because she was highly anxious. She understood that there was a war happening in the world, but wasn't old enough to be able to recognise that it was a very long way away. The news can do a lot to amp up stress and anxiety. That may be something that you would like to stop. Comfort food and coffee. So comfort food is often something we can turn to that helps us to feel better temporarily because we haven't developed a willingness to experience our feelings. That may be something you want to become curious about and maybe think about making good decisions at the supermarket. So when you get the urge to reach for something that might be high in sugar and fat, which is what our brain is telling us we want when we are stressed, that food is not available for you and that there is a very disappointing alternative. That's what happens here when I reach for something, because I always really want to reach for chocolate. I've got my 78% Lindt chocolate, which kind of does the trick, but not quite. But it means I'm not going to binge on eating chocolate. I'm not going to overeat it. A couple of little squares, and I enjoy it mindfully, and I don't overeat. And therefore, I give myself an opportunity to experience how I'm feeling. If I do want to have a little something, I'm not going to afterwards feel regretful that I was eating my feelings, and then obviously that can put us in a negative spiral. When it comes to coffee is a stimulant, and so be mindful and curious about how coffee affects you. I have a rule: 2 coffees before 2 p.m, and that's only if I'm socialising. Otherwise, on a regular day where I'm not socialising or meeting up with anyone, I'll only have 1, and I'll try to have that before noon. One of the other things that I want you to be mindful of are your boundaries in your schedule. I think sometimes we can expect too much of ourselves, put too much into our days, and maybe that's something that you might like to think about, really being firm about your boundaries when your downtime is, and saying no. Obviously, if there's a wedding or a birthday celebration, that's not possible, but be protective of your schedule. Nobody else will be, and the more we say yes, the more people will ask of us. So look after you, and in looking after you, you are better able to look after the people that you love. The very last thing that I want you to consider stopping is this idea that you have to control everything. Being mindful of what's inside and outside of our control is powerful when it comes to anxiety. We want control. Anxiety is driven by uncertainty. But most things that occur, there's certain things that we can schedule. There's a lot that's in our control, but there is also a lot that isn't. So becoming more mindful of this need for control and being aware of what you can and can't control and developing a willingness to let go of what's outside of your control can be a really powerful change as well. So now it's over to you, choosing something to stop, something to start, something to continue. And if you'd like to learn more about some of the strategies I've shared in this episode today, please have a look back through previous episodes of the podcast, because you'll find some episodes are dedicated solely to some of the strategies that I have shared today, some of the ways of thinking, the mindset changes, perspectives, self-compassion, for example, as I mentioned, and sleep. But there are other episodes on alcohol, on coffee, on eating, so many different episodes that can help you do a deeper dive into some of these strategies and ideas. So choose something, start anywhere, and please connect with me on social media and let me know what you've decided to start, stop, or continue. And please also head to my website, scroll to the bottom of the homepage and join my newsletter subscription community. You'll receive a Calm Your Anxious Brain free mini email course when you subscribe. Write newsletters that are really meaningful and have actionable strategies that you can put into practice. And I have a section called If You Only Have Time for One Thing, so that you don't need to read everything, but you can put perhaps a really important new idea into practice quite quickly. So thank you. At the time of recording this podcast, I can't thank you enough. I have 63 5-star beautiful reviews on Apple Podcasts, and there are more beautiful reviews over on Spotify as well. I am so delighted to be able to share this with you and to thank you. It means a lot to me to know that the podcast is making a difference, but it's also really powerful for other people like us who either live with anxiety, struggle with it, or care for somebody else who is really having a hard time with anxiety. It helps those people to know that this is a trusted and compassionate place for them to be able to learn, for them to be able to tune in and understand anxiety in a way that they perhaps haven't before, and to have really actionable and practical ways that they can move forward with it and help other people to do the same. The latest review on the Apple platform is from Dipped in Dust. And Dipped in Dust writes, friendly, informative, and life-changing. It's like sitting down for a chit-chat with a friend that happens to be an expert in the area you're struggling with. Learning to embrace anxiety and turn it into a helpful tool to thrive has been life-changing. Thank you. Dipped in Dust, thank you so much for taking the time to write such a beautiful review, and I'm just so honoured and humbled that it's making such a difference for you. So I'm going to continue to read out some reviews. So if you wanted to hop onto the Apple platform or onto Spotify, please write a review. And if you're not sure what to write, you could share your favourite episode. You could share one key takeaway that you've put into practice, or you could possibly even just put a comment about feeling less alone, because you are indeed part of a global community here. So thank you so much. Thank you again for joining me for another episode, and I will be back next week with another wonderful guest. Take care. See you then. Bye. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave a review. To keep the conversation going, I'd love you to join me over on Instagram. You'll find me at Dr Jodi Richardson. Also, if you'd like a copy of my free 5-day mini email course, Calm Your Anxious Brain, then jump over to my website, drjodirichardson.com, and you can sign up down the bottom. I've really enjoyed having your company. Thanks so much. See you next time.